the other method of dealing with unwholesome thoughts that come up in our mind, that keep obsessing our minds, is by reflecting on the process through which they arise. There are certain causes of these thoughts. There is a mental process going on of fabricating, forming such thoughts, and we can reflect and trace back the thoughts that keep coming up. Why do they keep coming up? Why is there such a stream of constant thinking and imagining and fantasizing flowing through my mind all the time? It can be quite a habit. It's like a habit of obsessive thinking, which just doesn't stop. But we have to really look under the surface and pay careful attention to the source of such thoughts. Where does this kind of thinking arise from? What are the causes of it? And there is this process of mental fabrication coming from somewhere, and it's possible to trace the thoughts back. The Buddha describes it, giving a nice kind of simile. He says, it's like a man that's running. He's running and he's exhausted, and he thinks to himself, gosh, I've been running a long time, I'm exhausted, and this isn't very comfortable. Why don't I just slow down a bit and just walk? Okay, he slows down, and he realizes, oh, that's better. I don't feel so exhausted anymore, and I can breathe more easily. So he asks himself, well, why do I keep walking? Why don't I just stop? So he stops, and he can breathe even more easily and feels a bit more relaxed, energetic. And then he thinks, well, even standing, it just uses up my energy. Why don't I just sit down? So he sits down and relaxes and stretches, and he may even lie down, just assuming the bodily posture which is most comfortable. And in the same way, when we look at our minds, when it's constantly busy with thinking, imagining, speculating, remembering, mental proliferation going on and on and on in circles, it's kind of exhausting, and we can get really fed up with it, tired with it. And in such a case, rather than relying on other ways of stopping thinking or pushing thinking out of our minds, such as by distracting ourselves, doing something externally, or eating some kind of pills or drugs which will just numb our minds and calm it down artificially, it's much better to really look at the mind and deliberately, intentionally let it calm down, slow down. We can use various meditation techniques to do that. There are ways in which the mind can be given a very simple object, some kind of simple exercise. We can count our breaths, for example, which is still an activity, but it's an activity, mental fabrication, which is much more peaceful, and it will calm the mind down by focusing the mind on a simple object such as the breath, and counting from 1 to 10 or something like that. And in this way our thinking will calm down, and we will feel much more at ease, relaxed. We will feel refreshed, because the mind, if it's overused in this way, it'll just feel very, very restless. It will not be settled, calm and composed in itself. And only as the last resort does the Buddha recommend actually forcing the mind to stay quiet and calm down, and forcing like an unwholesome thought out of our mind. And that should only be done in the case that you know, it's a very, very unwholesome thought, and it might lead us to some unskillful action or saying something wrong. So it's better to just push it out of our minds like that. So all these thoughts, they are the manifestations of the unwholesome roots: greed, lobha, anger, hatred, dosa, and delusion, ignorance, moha. And the Buddha says, well, from these three unwholesome, unskillful roots of action, which is the most unwholesome one, or how do they actually manifest in the mind? And the answer he gives is interesting. He says the greed, wanting and desiring things, it's something that's not very blameworthy, it's not that bad, but it takes a long time to fade away, to disappear. Anger, on the other hand, anger and hatred and this kind of negativity, it is more blameworthy because it has a more harmful effect on other people, but it fades away rather quickly because it's also unpleasant to ourselves, mentally, internally. And the third one, delusion, ignorance, it's both very blameworthy and takes a long time to disappear. So it's that one which we have to ultimately work on, and we have to eliminate that in order for all these other unwholesome thoughts to disappear.